Welcome back. And as we know, South Africans are generally struggling to cope with the high cost of living. And as debt increases, some may be enticed into committing crime. And many justify insurance fraud as a victimless crime. And from lying on applications to save money to false claims, it still remains fraud and it is against the law. It is a crime. To discuss this, we have Garth de Klerk, CEO of the Insurance Crime Bureau. Garth, good afternoon to you and thank you so much for joining us. How prevalent is the temptation, or where we might even have examples of convictions where South Africans who were in dire straits then decided to defraud the insurance system?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all of your viewers today as well. Yes, unfortunately, we are finding that the attitude towards insurance fraud and crime is one that it is a victimless crime. And that is just so far from the truth. Very similar to what we're seeing with online scams and financial scams, there is always a victim at the end of the road, and there's always an impact on society. We have seen, as we've said in our articles, an increase in the crime that we are experiencing around financial crimes and fraud. And we are also seeing a very high prosecution rate and convictions. So we're seeing we live in a physical society. People are desperate at the moment because of economic conditions, and they are turning to crime as what they consider to be an easy solution to raise cash.
And if you give us an example, let's say you had a home invasion, for example, and you claim more than what you actually had possessed in terms of appliances, etc. Is that one of the general sort of insurance frauds or crimes that are committed?
Yes, definitely. So padding claims is definitely a very common cause that we see in the industry. And people are tempted, if your car's stolen, you claim that your leather jacket was in the car or your laptop was in the car, your spare iPad or something like that. Those claims are going to be caught out. They're just too simple to catch. What we are seeing more, though, is more sophisticated crimes around incident staging on vehicles, incident staging on home invasions. So people are reporting home invasions that actually never happened, and they are claiming the whole incident as a fraud. We are also seeing an uptick in things like funeral fraud, where people are being actually murdered for money, and we're seeing family members taking out other family members to benefit financially.
I mean, this is, as you speak now, because of the high-profile nature of the case of your Rosemary Ndlovu and many others that have come to the fore. But there are cases that may not necessarily get the spotlight. And as you're saying, there has been an increase in those kind of fraud cases, be it femicide or homicide, but it has to do with the insurance money. How do these necessarily portray themselves, particularly when it comes from the insurance company or even the claimant themselves? What is the modus operandi usually?
So normally what will happen is that the insured will take out a policy with the intent of committing a fraud or crime somewhere down the line. They think that they are aware of the red flags that we normally use in the insurance industry, and they're not aware of the fact that we are always improving systems, improving intelligence, and improving communication within the industry to catch them. So, for example, working with partners like the South African Fraud Prevention Services allows us to encapsulate a lot more information on individuals and on modus operandis across the various financial crimes that we see. And it becomes easier to catch them using technology and things like artificial intelligence.
All right. Do you only get the notification if there has been a pattern in a particular client's behavior when it comes to their claim history or whatever it is that they may have reported to have been a crime? How do you then detect whether this person is truthful and the other is not?
So, yes, we get events where there's been patterns, but there also are individual red flags that will set off alerts. So, I'm not going to go into too much depth as to how we do it, because that would be educating individuals that we don't necessarily want to educate. But there are some very sophisticated methodologies in play, including voice analysis and, just data analysis, comparing it to the norm. If you have a certain profile and your claims history goes out of that profile, quite often we'll just be able to pick it up like that, So we say humans are creatures of habit, but humans are also creatures of profiles. And if you start falling outside of that profile, we're going to pick that up.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on also, while you're on the profile, in the sense that high-risk clients would typically be those who live in areas that are crime hotspots, or possibly, that doesn't necessarily have the community policing forums or any other means to create a safe environment. Is that still the case? For example, if you live in a township versus living in suburbia?
I think it's a pretty fair mix. These days, if I was asked to say, who's high risk, if you're South African, you've got a risk that you have to deal with. Yes, definitely certain individuals are higher risk than others when it comes to individual crime. So the funeral fraud we are seeing in more rural areas, but we see very high risk life claims in the middle of suburbia. So it's not one shoe fits all. As the economic conditions have worsened across the country, and in fact across the world, we are seeing those type of targets changing.
Yeah, and you say this is not likely to change anytime soon, where we will see a tipping point, Garth, in the sense that we're still facing the harshest economic climate experienced since the 2008 global financial crisis, including the current war in the Ukraine and all other global elements that impact on the living conditions and affordability standards of South Africans. Are we seeing, in your view, if this will turn the corner, so to speak?
It's only going to turn the corner when the economy starts to improve. We're seeing a little bit of pressure easing off, possibly on interest rates, which would then affect our debt gearing costs and the ability to live a little bit more. But as long as debt versus income is as high as it is at the moment, especially in South Africa, we're going to continue to see this increase in physical crime continue. And it's across the board, whether it's murder, whether it's assault with intent, whether it's home robberies, housejackings, carjackings, car theft. It's going to continue to increase while the cost of living increases. It will only abate once we as citizens feel the economy ease off a little bit and give us a bit of slack.
Yeah, and with these conditions, notwithstanding the fact that there is pressure on disposable income in the household, but of course, you would also advise clients to retain or maintain some minimum level of insurance that fits their means.
Definitely. Insurance is there to protect you. It's there to return you to a position that you were in before you experienced the loss. Insurers are there to pay valid claims, and insurers have been very open-minded and quite innovative in developing products that are affordable to the normal man on the street. However, insurance is something that bears its own costs, and fraud is unfortunately one of those costs. So as a society, we have to look at ways of combating that cost to keep insurance affordable to the normal man on the street, normal man and woman on the street.
Got you. All right. Thank you so much, Garth. That's Garth de Klerk, CEO of the Insurance Crime Bureau, saying under these very strenuous economic climate, people are intent, or rather have the inclination, to take the easy way out and defraud the industry. It is against the law, and there are consequences and repercussions.